Whichever.
Blog Talk Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Wednesday night, and all of y'all know if it's Wednesday night, it's time for Off the Chain. I am your host, Yvonne Mason. That music is one of my favorite pieces. It's called Indistinguishable from Magic by my friend David L. Hollifield. He wrote that song and several other songs to go with author Stephanie Osborne's detective series. And the more I listen to it, the more that I see a dance, modern dance choreographed with it. I just absolutely love it. Now, tonight, our guest is, of course, author and musician Dan Hollifield and author David Ulnar Slew. But before we get to those guys, I have to tell you, this show just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing, and pretty soon I'm probably going to have to get an assistant to help me keep track of everything and everybody and help me do the research and help me build the shows because this thing's exploding. And we've just been live a little over a year. And my goal was, when we were a year old, to be at 25,000 listeners just for the show. Well, we surpassed that. This morning, when I ran the numbers, we are at 29,859 listeners just on Blog Talk Radio. And, of course, our greatest and biggest supporters are the listeners from Australia. I am so grateful. Ladies and gentlemen, we're only 141 listeners from 30,000 listeners just on this show. I'm wordless and I'm a wordsmith. When you add all the podcasts this thing shows up on, and we're heard in over 70 countries, we are at 42,959 listeners. So we're only 2,041 listeners away from 45,000 listeners worldwide with all the podcasts. This show is heard on iTunes, YouTube, FM.com, Stitcher, Podcast Garden, Podcast, Mixcloud, SoundCloud, Spreaker, and several other oddball podcasts that other people put it up on. So between all the listeners that we have and the guests that literally come on the show over and over again without my even asking, they just ring me up and say, Vaughn, you got a slot for me. I want to be on the show. Y'all are the ones making this show great. I'm just a facilitator, and I am so honored and so humbled that this show is growing so fast. And with that in mind, I'm going to throw out a little tidbit, a little teaser, as they say. The show that I will be on in November, calling Leading Double Lives on the ID channel, is in the final stages of editing. It does involve my true crime silent scream. It is the fourth time that I have been on television with this book, and I'm very honored and very privileged. So as we get closer, I'll give y'all dates and all that. I am getting ready to write 5 true crime novels, and the more I dig, the worse it gets. So my presence on social media has been slack because of that, and I apologize, but when the voices say, Vaughn, we need to be heard, then I have to do it. Now, on to tonight's show and fun. Author-musician Dan Hollifield was born November 1957 at almost the same moment that Sputnik II was launched. Now, you little millennials, you don't know what Sputnik II is, so go do your homework and read about it. However, the two events are not in fact related. His father was a machinist graduating from the General Motors Institute in the mid-1950s. And after they fled the harsh Musican winters for a return to the family's ancestral home, Dan's father began working in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, God's country, making toys for the physicists to play with. Dan's mother is an artist specializing in oils, china painting, glass painting, and multimedia home crafts, and it's no wonder that Dan is so talented. He gets it from both sides. Then the other guest that I have on the show tonight, and these two guys are intertwined, and when we get into the show, you'll understand why, is David Ulnar Slew. And David has just released his book, The Sixth, in audio, and his book is fantastic. Yeah, it's really, really good. He is founder and editor-in-chief of Cheapjack Pulp magazine, plank owner and the Illiterati Writers Collective, flash fiction editor emeritus of Aphelion, the Webzine of science fiction and fantasy, editor-at-large of Aphelion. And welcome, guys. I am so glad y'all are on the show tonight.
Hey, Yvonne.
Thank
you, Yvonne. It's nice to be here.
Well, there he is. I thought Dan was drinking his beer and was going to get choked, and I was going to have to do the Heimlich maneuver through the telephone, you know.
Oh no, I can do both. Believe me, I can talk and drink at the same time.
David,
I've been to conventions. I have practice.
We may have to send the EMS people over there. Okay. Now,
well, tell them to bring another 12. I'm running out.
Oh, good Lord! All right, let's do a little history of you two guys together.
Oh,
because the Aphelion magazine, a Webzine, has been around forever. So who wants to take the lead of how you two met and how you met this. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are into sci-fi, this Webzine is magnificent, and it serves dual purposes. And I'll let the guys tell us. Okay, who's going to take the lead?
Well, Aphelion is kind of a permanent floating writers' workshop. Basically, that's what we made it for. It's to teach amateur writers what they need to turn pro and start selling their work, like David, and he's one of our success stories, along with many others. And basically, I was assistant editor for Dragon's Lair Webzine back in 1995, and that went on for about 2 years. And the fellow that was running Dragon's Lair got some bad reviews on his work, and he got really upset and decided to close the website down. And I'm sitting there going, but we have, people have stories, new chapters, new continuing stuff going on. What are we going to do? What can I do here? I've got to help these folks. And he said, start your own e-zine. And I go, okay, how do I do that? And a friend of mine explained it to me, and I shelled out a little bit of cash and got the website going. And for about 2, maybe 3 years, it was pretty much a one-man band. I was doing everything by myself, reading the slush pile, doing the editing, doing critiques, and doing the HTML to make it web pages. And I got overwhelmed. It was just too much work for one person. And the friend that got me clued in as to how to do this said, this is too important for us to let this thing die. You're not going to be allowed to give up and retire after 2 years, 3 years, however long it was. And I all of a sudden had a staff. And I go, okay, this is new. How can we do this? How can we make this work? And they go, you pay the bills, we'll do the HTML. And pretty much that was February of 1997. And Aphelion has been online continuously since then.
So, David, how did you get involved in the madness?
We tricked him.
March of 2014, I had come into writing or back into writing. Never really put the right effort into it. Never really tried. Always a bridesmaid, never a bride, and got rejected a lot. And got my first acceptance from Aphelion, and so I became a Aphelion groupie. I was a multi contributor a month. I just went completely ballistic because of the enthusiasm that was reflected back. My enthusiasm reflected back. Then when I started as a flash fiction author, and then unfortunately a good friend of Dan's and mine had to leave as the flash fiction editor, and I took it upon myself to run a contest in his absence. They had a monthly contest that was going to lapse if somebody didn't do it. I took it upon myself to run the contest, and that was actually my interview for being the editor. I didn't know it at the time, but that was my interview for being the editor. And and so then I served as a flash fiction editor for about a year, and then what had happened is, as much as I liked doing it, I had outgrown in terms of time. I was actually fighting where people were offering me money to do things and I had to take the step out of there, which nobody begrudged me, so that I could publish my own novel and didn't know it until I had broken away. But very soon afterwards, I wanted something similar, but I wanted it under my own terms, so that I could set the deadlines and I could call the shots, not because I was restricted there, but because I could work it around my schedule. So I actually started my own zine, which is released on paperback and on Kindle and online, and is a token payment market, so that I could still have that feeling. And that, I don't want to say that blew up. It's a lost leader, but I do very similar to what Aphelion does. I just do it every 3 months, and I take some of my earnings as an author and sow them back into the amateur community on a very small scale to give people a sense of accomplishment. And then I never really left the Aphelion community. I pop in there, not as often as I used to when it was my only outlet, but I can't. It probably, if a day goes by that I don't go in there, then I hit it the next day. I'm on the boards and I'm in the conversations, and I never really left. And if somebody needed help, I'm still there for them. So that's about how I work into the mix there.
Would it be safe to say that because of you two guys, that people that have the desire to write, and y'all know from past experiences I do, that most of us have this, and ladies and gentlemen, yeah, we do have a fragile ego. Mine's from being told I was too stupid to do it. But for people like that who want to sort of put that toe in the water, but they're afraid they'll drown, these two sites offer them that avenue of being able to do that with a support group that won't let them drown.
Right.
Oh, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I am so envious that David has the resources to be able to pay his writers. I wish I could do that. I really wish I could do that. But, all of my funding comes from my day job. And basically there's not a lot left over after the bills.
I understand that. But the exposure itself, Dan, on your end, the exposure and the ability for someone to say, I really want to write, I'm afraid because I'm afraid it's not good enough. Nobody should ever have to feel they are not good enough in any endeavor, in any dream. They should just jump right in that dream and run with it like they stole it. Would that be true, David?
Oh, absolutely. I never thought I'm going to be 43 this year. I started this in my 40s, which I'm sure people have started later than that, but I thought that the dream was over, and I was wrong. The dream was just beginning. Yeah, I mean, yeah. If you're 60 and you wanted to do it, you should start at 60 because you can still do 20 or 30 years of it.
I was 56.
Yeah.
And I'm 67.
I'll be 60 this year.
Yeah, and I'm 66 now, so.
My first book came out 3 years ago. And after all this time of running Aphelion, basically what I do is I pay the bills and I let everybody else do the work they love to do.
Right.
But I finally learned enough to be able to sell something. And that made me eligible to join the 250, almost 300 writers Aphelion has managed to train to the level to be able to sell their own work. And some of them actually make a living off of it. Matter of fact, one of our writers from the good old days is now has been nominated for a Dragon Award for DragonCon
nice.
For his latest novel. And it's just one of those things where everything kind of snowballed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it started off as this one-man band where I'm going, oh, this is great. I've got to show this to somebody in a HTML stuff and throw it online, and things kind of happen. And we have literary agents that actually secretly troll the website looking for new talent. And when they find something they like a lot, and it has to be a lot because they're really busy people.
Yeah, they have manuscripts sitting all over the place, yeah.
Oh, Lord, yeah, the slush pile for pro publishers, good grief. That's like a month's worth of that for one single pro publisher is like a year's worth of slush pile for Aphelion. So, I mean, we put out 8 to 10 short stories every month and 5 or so flash fiction every month, and poetry, 8 to 10 poems every month, and long stories, novels, novelettes, novellas, things like that, serialized stuff whenever it comes in, because the longer something is, the fewer readers it's going to have by the time it ends, because people have a short attention span. They want the quick stuff, which is why Flash is so popular.
And that is true. Do you know that a person, a grown person's attention span, and I'm talking people that are fairly well educated, and I learned this in public speaking, their attention span is 15 minutes max, 12 minutes on the low end, and you're lucky if you can get them for 20 minutes.
Well, I'm not that well educated, but I've been paying attention to Aphelion for 20 years.
One of these days, Dan, I'm going to pop over there and throw something up and see if y'all accept it just for grins and giggles.
Well, yeah, but you do the true crime stuff, so that's not really our genre. But if you want to throw yourself into some science fiction, we'd be glad to have you.
I do.
You can send it to Cheapjack.
See, Dan, he has not been paying attention. I do true crime, crime fiction, inspiration. I do comedy. I do horror. I do suspense. I just haven't gotten into science fiction and fantasy yet.
Well, it's a genre. It's just one of those things. You have to learn the rules and play the game according to the rules.
Now he's done it, Dan. Now he's gone and done it.
Oh, me?
Yeah, you. Rules.
You can make it work. Good grief. We have one of our just most highly rated writers for anything. She makes her living off of mysteries, and she writes science fiction on the side, and her editors and publishers say, we can't publish this under your name. It's not your imprint. It's not your audience. And she goes,
they put people in a box.
I'll send it to Aphelion then.
Yeah, and this is wrong. This is why I do my own stuff, because I get so sick of publishers putting writers in a box. You can only write this. You can only write. No. That and what happens is writers get burnt out, and they start writing the same old crap over and over and over again. They just change the name, change the place, and change the storyline a little bit.
Well, yeah. Once you find a formula that works, you can turn into Barbara Cartland. But where's the fun in that?
Exactly.
I mean, basically,
jump in, man.
Once you're to the point to where you're just changing the names and changing the historical period and the costumes, you're writing the same damn thing over and over again.
And it's boring.
Science fiction gives you a chance to go wherever your mind wants to go.
Yes and no. there's only what 3 to 7 actual real stories.
7.
That's true.
Yep.
The hero's journey, man versus himself, man versus nature. So, I mean, people actually crave the same a new take on the same stories. How many times has the farm boy been the secret son of the arch villain and found his destiny when he picked up the magic sword?
Oh,
that never happened.
Sorry, Luke. Wouldn't it be fun to put just one writer that I used to read religiously, I no longer read because I pick up the book, I read the synopsis, and I say, oh, so they changed the place, they changed the name slightly. Same storyline. I know how this is going to end, and I put it down. I won't buy it.
Yeah, now, when things get formulaic, people lose interest, unless the formula is a really, really, really good one. I mean, Doc Savage went on for 181 stories, and through 4 different writers, and that was pulp fiction. Back in the day when, people only had a dime to spend on something.
Right.
You can make things work, but you got to put your own particular personal spin on what you're doing.
See, in my science fiction, Dan, these creatures in the netherworld would maybe have 2 heads, and one would speak with one voice and one would speak with another voice, and they would dress differently on either side. That's my science fiction.
Sounds like some people I know from conventions, actually. They've got a public persona and a private persona, and the two don't cross over.
Right. Now, David, your website, your Webzine.
Yeah.
You're not science fiction and fantasy. What is yours?
I cover all the pulp. So I'm doing science fiction, fantasy, dark fantasy, romance, horror, detective, westerns, and action. I have all those sections. So I'm putting out pulp for everybody. Everything that falls into the pulp umbrella, I'm actually doing. So just about anything, as long as you're willing to accept nouveau pulp. If you're not going to accept that it's a little bit pulpy, you probably don't want to read it. But really, now pulp is just a buzzword for any genre of fiction, because you're not going to see any literary fiction there. Let me put it that way. If you don't like genre fiction, you don't like pulp.
And Cheapjack is so good. I mean, everything in it is so good. I mean, he's holding up this target for people to aim at. This is how you do this and have fun.
Exactly.
Well, it's I pay them, but it's a tremendous loss leader. I lose money on it. I won't even lie. But I don't pay extravagantly. But I do pay, and it gives people a feeling of justification and vindication when they get some money in their pocket for it. And then I actually kill myself on the other end, because I post all of their work for free to the readers for 3 months, and then I wrap it in paperback and ebook, and I get trickles of sales after the fact to reimburse myself. I've never broken even on a single issue.
Yeah, micropayments suck, don't they?
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, I can remember a time in the 90s when I started putting together my first book. And before you could do it yourself. You either had to go traditional, or you just put it in a drawer somewhere and forgot it, or you paid thousands and thousands of dollars. And there's still people that do that. I don't understand it. Pay thousands and thousands of dollars and buy a shitload of books they'll never sell just to say their work is out there. But anyway, so
Vanity Press, yes.
Yes. So when I kept getting all these rejection letters, I just put it aside. I said, okay, and I did the first manuscript, guys, with pen and paper. I still have it. Pages are yellowed, but I still have it. It's one of my most treasured possessions. So I thought, if nobody else reads it but the children and the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren, then my brother will have a voice. Then they can carry the story by word of mouth once the pages fall apart. But then when I moved to Florida and I got the itch again, I mean, this story was burning to get out, and I went looking. And I found out, hey, now I can do it myself. I've never turned back. So for you guys to offer that to someone who is full of trepidation, I am grateful. I wish someone had been around when I first started that would do that.
I mean,
there's a story in this month's Aphelion that it was submitted when I was a temporary short story editor a couple of months ago. When an editor leaves and nobody comes in to replace them, I am the default person. And I read the submission and I go, there's a couple of problems here with things not being too clear where the action is going and where they got here from there.
Mm-hmm.
This could use some attention, and I gave specific of what those were and suggestions as to how that could be improved. And here, this month, I come to find out, because I'm the publisher, I don't read every submission. I let the editors handle their own sections by themselves. I don't micromanage anybody. And here, this submission is in the zine right now this month, and the writer took some of my suggestions and ran with them and said, no, that's not what I want to do, with some other suggestions. And it's a much better story than it was when I first read it as an original submission. And she's amazing, absolutely amazing.
And all it took was just that little bit of help over the hump. Dan, what were you going to say?
Oh, no, I haven't discussed it with Dan, but you know, I've actually gone a step further recently. I'm actually, and this I'm charging for. I've been doing some consulting work, helping people actually. I've developmentally edited for people, and now I'm actually representing other authors. And
that's hard work.
Yeah. Well,
that is hard work.
Editing I had to take money for, and I was charging about 50% of what I could have got. I found out, but I'm actually doing a collaboration with a fellow in Texas named Weston Mitchell. He has a book out called The Heart of It All. We kind of got a bromance going. We met up through mutual contacts, self-publishing podcast, and so on. And we're actually writing a science fiction novel together. And I'm representing, of all things, I'm representing an erotica author named Callie, Cally Moorhead. She's got 4 books out, and she's not really savvy to how the system works, but she's writing some. Well, I can't judge, but she other people said she's writing some good erotica. So the flow keeps going, and we keep. Dan, as we grow and mature in our craft,
then we pass that along to others to grow and mature. And we're going to have a whole new generation of dreamers out there that's going to be writing novels and novellas and flash fictions and short stories. And people after us are going to have books to read for a long, long time.
Oh,
Yes.
We've already reached that point. If you can't find something you like just on Amazon alone, then I don't know what you're even thinking. That any genre, any angle, anything is covered. Anything you think of that you can type in the search bar will come up as something you can read on Amazon right this moment.
Yeah, and it's not just Amazon. It's all kind of other places as well. But
That's
Amazon
true.
is the biggest market.
I mean, you've got Kobo, you've got Smashwords, you've got, what's the other, another 2 or 3 more out there now.
Oh, let's see, Goodreads.
Goodreads, you've got Goodreads out there.
Google
But there's
Play, Apple, Playster, Scribed.
And when you
then
get further and further from Amazon, the big name for you wind up finding these delightful pieces that people have thrown their hearts into, and they're just so fantastic. But nobody in the pro-publishing circles would give them a chance, so they had to go independent. And there's so much indie stuff out there.
There is.
It's really hard. It's really hard to get attention when you're doing that sort of thing. And Cheapjack is good for bringing attention to a writer's name. Here's something I did. You might enjoy something else I did. And here's a link to that. And the same kind of thing Aphelion does. Here's something I did. If you enjoy this, here's something else I did. And here's a magazine that you may never have heard of before, but they published this, and I actually got a check for it. So here.
And would it be safe to say that we have, as indies, and ladies and gentlemen, we are proud to be indies. And so if you are reading an indie author, be proud of that book. And if someone comes up to you and turns their nose up at it, tell them they don't know what they're missing, because we have worked long and hard to break that glass ceiling and break out of that box. Because would you guys both agree that ever since the printing press came out, that publishers, like everybody else, the news media, the newspapers, have all been telling us what to read? They make us read what they want us to read. We don't have to do that anymore. It's like David said, all you got to do is type in a search engine. You can find anything now, and it's because of indie authors.
Oh, yeah. And I don't think it even started with the printing press. I think it was scrolls back way before the Middle Ages, in Egypt. There was stuff put out that was kind of indie, and somebody goes, okay, I'm going to have this illuminated then. Where can I find a monk?
And David,
if any of the big five are listening, I do not want to deal just like John Salvi. You stay away from me with those traditional publishing deals. I do not want your filthy $10 million.
Exactly.
So.
Well, and I don't care if I never get rich off of my books. I write my books because it makes me happy. I write my books because I can't not write, because the voices in my head won't shut up. I have to write the true crimes because those voices beg to be heard. So when
they
ladies
need to be heard.
Yes, they do, because they're forgotten. So, ladies and gentlemen, when we as indie authors put a book out there, we're not getting millions of dollars for these books. Sometimes I barely clear $2,000 a year, but I don't care, because it's what I do. It's who I am. And without it, it would be like tying my hand behind my back saying, Yvonne, you can't do anything anymore. Just shoot me and be done with it.
Well, I have to do what I do. It's either put the stories out or go crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got voices in my head. They're telling me what to do, and they don't live in this universe, or at least not the same one I live in. So I've got to go visit them occasionally and take dictation.
I'm envious that you have the choice of either get them written or go crazy. Nobody ever gave me that choice, so I had to do both.
So you went crazy, right? I love it. Well, I go crazy to keep them going insane.
Well, writing is a form of mental illness. You're sitting there. You're sitting there at your typewriter or word processor, and you're pounding these words out. You're hearing these voices in your head. These people are arguing, and all you're doing is sitting there and taking dictation, basically.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, you get some attention from somebody that thinks they can make some money off of your name. And you're Robert Heinlein, or you're Larry Niven, or you're Jerry Pournelle, or you're Orson Scott Card, whose work I'm not really fond of. But, hey, his work's okay. I don't like his personal attitudes.
Oh, and that brings me to another point, and I think you both will agree with me, David. If I get too big for my britches, as we say in the South, if I get too big for my britches because I think that I've got it made, I am fairly well known. People come to me like they come to y'all. People respect what I have to say now, where they didn't always. But if I get so big in my own ego that I don't have time for someone else, then I want one of y'all to just slap me and get my attention, because we got where we are because people wanted to read our book. So why would we not have time for those people?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. If no matter where I'm at, if somebody comes up to me and says, "I've got this idea," and I go, "Okay, tell me about it," and I give them positive reinforcement.
Mm-hmm.
This is a good idea. Go for it. Do the work. Put your butt in the chair. Type. Make sure you go through all the steps, self-editing and proofreading that you can do. And then you need a first reader to tell you where you've got your head where the sun don't shine. And when some dialogue is kind of clumsy and you could fix it, and suggestions as to how you can fix it. And it's up to you whether or not your deathless prose is written in granite carvings, or if you can actually edit things. And oh Lord, I hate the writers that go, no, I've done so much. You can't edit my work. And I'm going, dude, if you don't have an editor, you're handicapping yourself.
Yes.
Everybody needs an editor. Everybody needs a first reader.
I'm so glad I got past that. I actually delight in destroying what I've created. So I got to the end of the 6 and decided that people had to die because enough people hadn't died. So I made a secret list. I folded the paper and numbered the characters, and I had my 10-year-old daughter pick a number randomly as to who was going to die, and then I forced myself to write it in.
And that's growth.
I got lucky enough to where I was at a convention and went to a panel that David Weber was on, and the panel was about how to get readers invested in a character that you need to kill off 2 books later. for the emotional. Oh, it was amazing. It was an education. I swear. I had never thought this way before. And I went back to a short story that I was working on, and I go, okay, somebody's got to die. Who is it?
Now, y'all are going to laugh. Y'all are going to laugh because before I got sucked in, and I mean that in the most loving way, before these families of these victims came to me, I was working on a trilogy. And the trilogy is set in Scotland. It's set in England, and then it goes back to Scotland. And Dan, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was doing the very same thing that you did with your story. I'm looking at all these characters thinking, now I'm doing a trilogy, he's going to die.
Yeah. But the trick is, and that's what David laid out in I hate to say black and white, but in his words, he goes, look, you've got some character that you need to kill for the emotional impact on the readers. Now, how do you make the readers care? This is how you do it. You go back, you re-edit, you make them into someone that they actually care about. And then when it's time for their death to come, you make it mean something.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back into the story I was working on, and I go, well, yeah, somebody got to die. Who is it going to be? It can't be this guy. It can't be this girl. She's the love interest. It can't be this guy. He's the money man. Wait. This guy has a devoted follower who is just absolutely heroic and awesome and everything else. So I went back in and I changed the dialogue to make him more included in the conversations, in the dialogue, and everything else. So when it came time for him to die, it was just like slapping somebody upside the head.
Did it rip your heart out, Dan?
Oh God, yes. I hated to kill him. I hate to kill any of my characters, which is why I'm such a my main drawback with my writing is that I do such crappy villains. They're so they're so Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers villains. I mean, they're just stomping around chewing the scenery, and I'm going, this is not the way they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be nuanced. They're supposed to be human. They're supposed to believe that they're the hero of their own story. And I've got to kill them off. And this is just, oh, you're annoying. Goodbye.
David, how do you kill off characters?
You know what? I just let them die. It just makes sense. I write them into and it's the opposite. They die when it makes sense to die, and if you actually look at writing, you can stop, and people that don't kill off the characters, you can stop and look and say it doesn't make sense that somebody didn't die.
Exactly.
In the six, you've got some very accomplished fighters fighting the whole time, and they beat everybody that's rank and file. But then finally, when they're put up against people who aren't rank and file, there's a significant chance that they'll die rather than their opponents, because their opponents are as good as them in combat. So that's the natural time for them to die. And, it is. If you took a normal pikeman out of an Anglo-Saxon army and put him up against who's basically a farmer before he grabbed the pike, and put him up against a Viking who spent every day of his life from 12 years old to 32 charging up into villages and slaughtering everything that he touched, that Viking is going to tear him apart. But then if you put that Viking against another Viking, it could go either way. and that's basically what the scene needed. I mean, and of course, I had an ensemble cast, so it didn't make sense that everybody is going to make it out of the book unscathed. People die, and if you want to write real, then sometimes people have to die that are your core group.
That's what George R.R. Martin says. I've read all of his books. I'm still waiting on the one that he's working on. But this is what he says, and people that have complained about his writing, that is the natural progression of life. And our heroes die. It's a fact of life. And there's no happily ever after. And the story continues. So you got to go with it.
Well, I mean,
but you have to pick the story moment.
Right.
You have to set the scene so that it makes sense and it actually pays off. But first, you have to invest the readers with the ability to care about that particular character. You have to make their death either a sacrifice, or if it's a character that's not particularly a heroic one, then you have to make that death go, oh, yeah, I've been waiting for this.
The scene that comes to mind, I had read the books, and of course my husband got me hooked on the series before I read the books. Well, I went ahead and read the books. So we're sitting there at the Red Wedding, and I knew what was going to happen. I didn't tell him what was going to happen. He goes, Yvonne, why didn't you tell me this was going to happen? I said, I couldn't spoil it for you.
Exactly, yeah. I've never met George, but he's an amazing writer.
He is.
He's merciless.
Very.
I swear.
Now,
I'm saying that as someone who knows writers who have killed off entire solar systems for a plot point. I mean, seriously, have you ever read Michael Z. Williamson stuff?
No.
People die all the time.
Y'all are not going to believe this.
And you always give a damn. That's the trick. That's the thing with George. That's the thing with Mike. That's when they decide a character has to go, they make an impact for the reader. Something that is going to just yank them out of their little comfortable chair and go, God, I've got to cry about this. I can't cry. My wife is watching. But I'm going to cry anyway.
Well, believe it or not, we're going to run out of time, and that makes me want to cry. So, David.
Good grief, we've had so much fun. When are we going to have a 5-hour show?
I don't know. David, tell the folks the name of your book, where you can be found, and other good stuff.
Let's see. My book is The Six. It's Amazon exclusive right now. I've got it on ebook, paperback, and now on audio. I'm representing and publishing for Callie Moorhead. She's got 4 books, 3 in one series, 1 in another, that are available on Amazon and Kindle as ebooks right now. And then a plug goes out to my collaborator. I got Weston Mitchell. He's down in Texas. He wrote a book called The Heart of It All. Really good book. Speculative fiction, kind of new adult. Tugs at the heartstrings a little bit. So I want to give a shout out to Weston Mitchell. Again, his book is The Heart of It All. And, of course, Cheapjack Pulp. Buy it. Support your local authors.
All right, Mr. Dan, it's your turn.
Well, Tales of the Marinibrium came out 3 years ago, and it is available through Dark Oak Press, and it is also available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble for Kindle and Nook, as well as hard copies. All of my music is available through Bandcamp.com for downloads and Create Space for physical CDs. I've had a lot of fun with everything, and I'm still working on new stuff. I have a short story that's coming out in a British publication that has an Italian author and or not author, editor, and a Canadian editor. It's a real multinational deal. It should be out sometime this year. I can't tell you the exact name of it because they might change it. But my story in there is basically it's a steampunk western.
Sweet.
I've got some steampunk stuff that I'm working on that doesn't have a publisher yet, and Aphelion-Webzine.com, and that is APHELION-WEBZINE. I have been the publisher for 20 years, and until the day I die, I will still be. There is the finest amateur fiction everywhere except for Cheapjack that you can ever find anywhere online. And we have 250 pro writers who started off as amateurs at Aphelion. And there's it's just look. It's there. Everything is there. Everything that we haven't been asked to take down because somebody said, hey, I'm getting paid for this. You need to take it down so the publisher doesn't refuse it. So, oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to... go ahead.
Dan can be, because we're going to run out of time, Dan can be found on Facebook under Dan Hollifield. David can be found under his other alias, Edward Sulllivan. And you guys, I want y'all to go friend these two guys because they're magnificent. Yes, I'll be bringing them back in March or April. I know they'll come back because these guys are magnificent. Tomorrow night at 8 o'clock in daylight time, I have a new author. His name's Eric Norway. He is a former Border Patrol DEA agent, and I cannot wait to get my little hooks in him. He has written a brand new book, and he got some blowback on it. We're going to talk about that. Somebody said, oh, is it really that bad down there? Oh, honey, it's worse. So join in tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time as I talk to Eric Norway. On Friday night, I have another author. Her name is Chris Fay. She will be here at 8 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time, and we'll talk about her books. And ladies and gentlemen, I love these two guys. I'm so grateful that they agreed to come on the show. They have been on before separately and with other people. Go check out their stuff because you won't be sorry. They're magnificent. Dan's music is absolutely to die for. David's book, I couldn't put it down. And then I got mad at him because I had to stay up all night to read it. I mean, that's just the way he writes.
Well, next time you have me and David together, he gets top billing because he's got the better stuff out, you know?
I don't know about that.
There you go. So as I always say, yeah, you both are equal, guys. As I always say at the end of my shows, if you want to achieve greatness, stop asking permission because there ain't nobody going to give it to you. If you want to be special, stop feeling special. Just be special. Your smile is your logo. Your personality is your business card. And how you leave others feeling after had an experience with you. Ladies and gentlemen, hands down, that becomes your trademark. And I am proud to say that that is one of the reasons that this show is so successful, because I hope and pray that everyone that has had an experience with me on this show goes away feeling better about who they are, wherever they are in life and whatever they're doing in life, that they feel great about themselves because we are all winners. And guys, again, I'm going to bring y'all back in March or April. As soon as we get off from here and I get back to my desk, I'll get the book out. I appreciate y'all so much. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your host, Yvonne Mason, with Off the Chain, with my wonderful, wonderful guest and friends, author and musician Dan Hollifield and author David Ulnar Slew. That's DAVID ULNARSLEW. So until tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Eastern, I'm sorry, I don't know where I am now. This is Yvonne Mason with Off the Chain, and we say good night.
Oh, that was wonderful. That was wonderful. Thank you, Yvonne.
You're quite welcome.
That was great.
I hope y'all enjoyed it as much as I did.
Yeah.
And I hope I didn't talk over you too much.
No,
yeah.
And I want y'all to come back because I think that the more we get Aphelion and Cheapjack Pulp magazine out there, the more we can drive people to it. And of course, with both of y'all writing your own books and things, that helps too.
Oh,
so,
yeah,
right.
of course.
And the music.
Oh, well, yes. You sounded like Stephanie. When are you going to write more?
Well, that's the burning question.
Well, I write when I can.
I understand.
There's a lot of stuff going on in my personal life that I've got to step back and go, don't have time to write today. I've got to get a new roof on the house.
Well, I have to deal with my sweet husband who's disabled, so I feel the pain because, see, I am responsible for everything in the household. I'm responsible for the house. I'm responsible for the car. I'm responsible for the yard. I'm responsible for the rental house. I'm responsible for getting him back and forth to doctors. I'm responsible for food. I'm responsible for, you name it, I'm responsible for it. I'm a very responsible person.
I wouldn't say that at all.
So I feel y'all's pain. I really do. The struggle, it is real.
Silly lady, responsibility is for kids. When you're grown up, you can be as irresponsible as you like.
That's true.
All I got is a day job and a couple of kids and a lot of excuses.
At least you're honest.
Yeah.
So on that note, I'm going to go see about my dear husband and probably find me something to eat because I did not eat before we went on air. And I will wait for...
Bad girl, spank.
Well, I don't like food. I just eat it because if I don't, I get sick. If I eat it, I get sick. So food is not my friend. I do not
You need
like
a burrito.
No. No, we would have terrible issues. I'd be up all night sick. So what I'm going to do is when this thing goes up in the archives, guys, y'all know the routine. I'll tag y'all in it, and then tomorrow when I put it up on all 5 of the podcasts, I'll put the links up and tag y'all, and y'all take it and run with it like you stole it.
Sure.
Oh, count on it, dear.
All right, darlings. And I love you guys both very much. You too. Thank y'all so much, and I can't wait to get both y'all back on here because I had a blast.
Just put us on the schedule, and we'll be here.
Sounds like a plan.
Sorry about committing you there, but, yeah, just put us on the schedule, and we'll be here. It doesn't matter. Me and Ed, me and Stephanie, just me, me blathering on for an hour. Good Lord. That would be a disaster.
Y'all have become regulars on the show, sort of like Johnny Carson had his regulars. I have my regulars.
Oh, my God. I'm Don Rickles?
Yes, you're Don Rickles. You are Don Rickles, David. I like that. Yes, you are.
Johnny Carson was one of my childhood idols. I always wanted to grow up to be Johnny Carson.
Well, see, I watched him for many, many years, and I watched how he did his shows. I paid very close attention, and what he would do is when he brought his guest out, he didn't talk about what they had coming out, what they'd written, what their music was, until towards the end of the interview. He would talk about them, and he would just let them talk. And he was never scripted.
Yeah.
And it was
get
magnificent.
The audience to get to know them as a person.
Right. Because
and
we are the brand. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what I try to do with y'all and the rest of my guests is I want the audience to know y'all, and then we'll sell the product because y'all are the brand.
Not used to being a brand.
You're the brand.
Well, I've been branded a few times, but.
And y'all do realize that this show is now, and all of this will be heard in the archived part. So add the little folks, listen to it all the way to the end because you're going to hear stuff you didn't hear on the live show.
Oh, well, folks, I'm more insane than I sound.
So now we're gonna promote David as Don Rickles, and we'll promote you as Jerry Lewis.
Ooh, I can do that.
Okay.
I was gonna say Bob Newhart, but okay.
Well,
I can even do the funny voices. Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Now, the next time we have you two guys on the show, you both got to be in character for a few minutes. That'll blow everybody's mind.
Really?
That'll be fun.
Okay.
That will be fun. So on that note, I'm thinking
I'll need about 10 minutes of rehearsal.
Okay,
but...
we got to. You can do this. So on that note, I'm going to say I love you guys. Thank you so much for being on the show, and we're doing this again in March or April.
My pleasure. See you later.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Bye-bye, Joe.
Bye-bye.
Yes, honey.